When it comes to sport, music and entertainment, well, sports stars want to be musicians. Musicians want to be actors. Actors want to be footballers. The reality is you'll get approached by anybody and everybody who will be wanting to try and represent you or trying to work with you.
Saif Rubie.
Entrepreneur, nightlife manager, founder of Future Gen Sports and luxury company, he was the youngest FIFA licensed players agent at 21.
He is on a mission to create the best nightlife club in Dubai.
A lot of people sulk when I say this, but the reality is there's no loyalty in the football business. From clubs to players to families, there is no loyalty. People are only loyal to the business. When you're dealing in a business where there's no loyalty, you're really fighting against a lot of other people in the business, in the game, that all want to take food from your table. If I don't do the job, someone else will.
Wow.
So it's really eat or be eaten.
Good evening, Saif Rubie. كيف الحال?
Alhamdulillah, pleasure to be here.
It's honestly, it's an absolute pleasure to have you here with us at Zeno Talks. You are one of the most captivating individuals in the UAE because, there's a lot of people that are probably talking now about all these football stars coming to the region, particularly like in Saudi Arabia. But a lot of people don't understand what happens like behind the scenes.
What really goes on.
What really goes on. Now, just before we start and dig into all this, because I know you're going to have a lot of information on this, you were born in the UK.
Yes.
You moved to Abu Dhabi. You grew up in Abu Dhabi, but then you went back to the UK. Again,
Yes.
your adult life, you spent it there. And you got into the world, the game of the people, like the game that everybody loves around the world, which is football, soccer. Yes. And then you transitioned from that field into the hospitality industry.
Yeah.
So first of all, let's start. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we're going to dive into your sports experience and your hospitality experience.
No problem. So yes, I was born in London, as you said, and then I grew up in Abu Dhabi till I was about 9 years old because my family had business there, and but originally I'm Iraqi. So went back to London, spent all my adult life there, went to university in England, and then basically was actually involved in like nightlife, hospitality business, going up in London when I was about 17, 18, 19 years old. And then off the back of that, I got to meet a lot of big professional football players, but because they're all my age, as in like people like Frank Lampard, Rio Ferdinand, John Terry. We all grew up around the same area. I grew up in West London, so I was very near Chelsea Football Club. My parents still live there. And so a lot of the guys that came up through the youth teams in Chelsea, I knew them from those days. So kind of got to know these guys, was involved in nightlife. Then I also knew a lot of the legendary Tottenham players like David Ginola, Teddy Sheringham, Les Ferdinand, and obviously Les, who became a director at QPR, who I'm still, in touch with.
Queen's Park
Rangers, yeah. So that's basically how I kind of started off in terms of making my connections and my networks, and then.
But can I ask you this, before you even got to this, I mean, were you growing up as a kid, did you ever play football?
I played football, but I was never obviously fit enough in terms of the athletic physical side. I played a very high level of rugby at school.
Okay.
So I actually played rugby with Nick Easter and Andrew Sheridan. Nick, who was a legend for the England rugby team.
Okay.
We went to a school called Dulwich College in South London, and Dulwich was one of the best schools in England for rugby.
Okay.
But again, I was never into the gym, into the fitness, in terms of the athletic, physical demands of becoming a professional.
Okay.
But at school, it was fun, it was great. But again, most of these people, like I was still in touch with to this day. And Nick became a legend for England. And obviously the same thing with the football players. But no, I wasn't never professional, but I had a lot of access and contacts with these people.
Okay. So you had the access, you had the connections and everything else. So, you know, at Zeno Talks, one of the things that we're trying to captivate is it's basically learning or getting to understand how people learned their way to the top. Like who was your biggest inspiration, number one? Like nobody ever said that, hey, I want to be like this football agent. You do say you want to be like Jose Mourinho just because, you know, I'm a big Chelsea fan myself, and you want to be like a player or anyone on the team, but you never say I want to be this. But then the people behind the scenes, like the football agents who for better or for worse sometimes, especially because when you support a team and you have this player that you're like, oh my God, you know, then why'd they move? Because then you're like, oh, this guy had an agent who probably saw another opportunity for them and took them away from this club. And we're like, no, why did you take them away? So tell me about that experience. What made you get into that particular space?
So, firstly, because I knew a lot of players. And in fact, I remember it because it was David Ginola, who was a legendary French footballer, played for Tottenham, played for Newcastle, plays for Paris Saint-Germain, French national team. So he said to me, Saif, you know a lot of players, you know, you take care of them, you do stuff for them, you should be an agent. So to be honest, I didn't actually have, it wasn't like I saw someone else doing it. I knew other people that were doing it, but that wasn't like, I knew some of the people that actually own some of the biggest companies in the world of sports management, but I never was going to work for any of them because I already had my own sort of, I always worked for myself. I never worked for anybody. So, and then when I got my license to be an agent at 21, I was the youngest agent in the world at the time.
And you got your license from?
England.
Oh, from the England Football Association.
Yeah. FA. So FA. So so I was the youngest agent in the world at the time.
Wow.
So I did that and kind of started from the bottom, you know, working with young players, working with semi-professional players, and just kind of like getting to know the ropes.
And so when you say young players, or you know, you started from the bottom, was that like working for like the championship league, or was
no? Like for example, one of my first clients was actually a player who was the captain of the West Ham United youth team.
Okay.
Who won the FA Cup a long time ago. But he was actually, his name is Anwar Uddin. He was actually like the first British Asian professional footballer.
Okay.
And right now he's actually now doing fantastically well, working with the Football Association and diversity and things like that. So, and I'm still in touch with him. Like he became like a little brother to me. So Anwar was the captain of the team that had Joe Cole and these players at West Ham.
At West Ham, yeah.
So he was my first guy that I worked with. And then I was working with like other players, not in the championship, like in non-league football, semi-professional football. So I kind of like mixed it up because it was like to get, you know, to deal with all the different levels. With Anwar, he didn't make it at Premier League level, but he had a very great career playing in the lower leagues. And he was a great player and a great person, more importantly. So, but because, again, I was around all the best young, say, players at West Ham, including Joe Cole. You know, I'm still friends with Joe Cole to this day. So
I love him.
Yeah, so so I got to be, you know, my network became bigger and bigger because of that, and you know, working hard, you know, building up your contacts. Obviously, being involved in hospitality and nightlife, my network in terms of general people in the world of sport, entertainment, media is very big. So you get to meet everybody, and then you try and, you know, the job of an agent is to connect the dots. So, you know, you will try and connect a player with his agent to a team, or a team with an agent, or a player, you know. Like my involvement can be directly with the players, it can be with the clubs, it can be with their agents, it could be brokering. So I'm involved in many different types of transactions. The most important thing is getting the deal done. So,
and can I ask you this? Just for the audience to understand this, an agent is not a scout.
No.
So a club generally have scouts.
Yes.
They'll go, they scout the players.
Yeah.
Sometimes they get them from different parts of the world or from wherever. And then they bring him into the club or whatever. But then the player would need an agent.
Yeah.
But then do clubs have their own agents, or do they just tell these players, hey, this is a list of credible agents which are registered or licensed by the FA?
To be honest, look, obviously, clubs will have agents they work with more often than not. In terms of like they have the good relations with. But as a parent or as a of a player or as a player, the reality is you'll get approached by anybody and everybody who will be wanting to try and represent you or trying to work with you. It's but from my perspective, I don't really operate like that. It's more by referral.
Okay.
So I like to be introduced to people in the right way. I don't typically cold call people for business.
Okay.
Or like approach players randomly in that way. It's always, I'm always like introduced and recommended by trusted sources.
Okay. So then when you said, for example, when you got your license at the FA, are there courses or something that you need to take to make sure that you understand what it takes to become an agent for a player?
So when I did it, yes. And then what happened in the game, then it became kind of less regulated, where anybody can become an agent. And, then there became a time when anyone was basically an agent, because you had to just sign up on the FA's website and then pay £300 a year to get a license. So then it got a bit out of hand. And then only recently, actually, it's been quite well publicized that FIFA have now taken control of the licensing process.
Okay.
So they've now forced everybody to take exams in order to prove that they are able to be qualified to be working as an agent in the football business.
Yeah, because I was going to say, like, if you are an agent for football players, it's not the same as being an agent for like a musician or like a movie star or something, right?
It's similar.
It's similar.
Similar because, listen, managing talent's managing talent.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, you're dealing with egos, you're dealing with people, you're dealing with talent. So, it's very similar, to be honest. Like, I've worked, obviously, not just in football, I've worked with musicians, I have worked with actors before, and it's a similar concept, but obviously different requirements and different demands. But now, obviously, with this whole FIFA licensing thing, which is starting right as we speak, right, literally in the next few days, it's been good, because a lot of unqualified people cannot work because of this.
Yeah. Okay, let me ask you this. If you are representing someone, they don't perform well on the field, what do you do? Are there KPIs? That's the question probably a lot of people are thinking. So, like, what does it take for me to ensure that I have this? You as an agent, do you act like a therapist? Do you act like a friend? Where's the fine line between friendship and professionalism and all of these things? I think everybody would want to understand this,
For me, to be honest, and a lot of people sulk when I say this, but the reality is there's no loyalty in the football business. From clubs to players to families, there is no loyalty. People are only loyal to the business. And from my perspective, I'm happy with that, because I'm not here to... Of course, a lot of the people I work with, because of the way I am and the way I try and conduct myself and do business and deliver, they become my friends and we are friends. But the reality is, this is all about getting deals done. So anyone that tells you anything else, they're in dreamland. So for me, it's very cutthroat. If I don't do the job, someone else will.
Have you dropped any talent?
Of course, talent have dropped me, as in the way that they feel that they can do better, but no talent's ever done that and gone on to better things. Not because I'm anything special, but I believe that I'm always if I'm helping a talent or a player, I'll always do my best for them. But at the end of the day, just because I do my best doesn't mean that they might have enough to achieve a certain level. Some players will become Premier League players. Some players will earn a good living in the Championship. Some players will even earn a good living in the lower leagues or in Europe. But the point is, I can only do so much. The reality is, it's up to the players and the talent to do their jobs on the pitch. Where I come in is I'm the person who's able to negotiate and broker the best contracts, the best deals, the best clubs. That's what I'm good at.
Yeah.
So, sometimes, it goes both ways.
Yeah. Which are some of the biggest players that you've represented so far, and the biggest clubs that you've worked with?
Yeah, I've worked with Manchester City. Actually, obviously we're here in the UAE, so when the Abu Dhabi bought Manchester City, I was one of the first people. I was working with Kolo Toure when he went from Arsenal to Manchester City. Also worked with Chelsea quite a lot. Chelsea is a club I had previously, not recently, but previously had great relations with in terms of bringing some top talents there. And more recently, I was the one who brought Tony Rudiger from Roma to Chelsea.
Nice.
And obviously, he's then gone to be one of the best defenders in the world and is now at Real Madrid.
Yes.
So I also brought Lucas Paqueta, who's obviously one of the best players in the world for Brazil, from Lyon to West Ham. So I was involved in introducing to make the deal happen between all the clubs and the player and the agent. So, my job is to connect and make things happen. And obviously information is key because that's where my value is. My value is in being able to provide information about how a deal can happen and what the value is, and to try and, find a sweet spot of value that makes everybody want to make a deal happen.
Yeah, because that's what I was going to ask you. Like, I know you said the players sometimes would get referrals and they say, hey, you should work with Saif and he'll be a great... But then how do you know if a club is looking for... Or how do you know, like, you know what, okay, I know this player is playing here, but I know that they have a potential at this other club?
Well, because obviously... Firstly, the football world is, even though it's a big business or a big world, it's a small world. So, I speak regularly to owners of football clubs, to directors of the technical directors of the clubs, to scouts, to recruitment. And, obviously my job is to fill the need of requirements of what positions, what players, what price, what deals they want to pay. So, for example, Lucas Paqueta was actually supposed to be originally, there was a lot of talk of him going to Newcastle at the time, for example.
Yeah.
But then, Newcastle had an injury and then the priority for them shifted to another position.
Yeah.
He ended up, going to West Ham, but because West Ham were also looking for that kind of player, so I introduced, all the parties together in order to be able to see how a deal can be done, and in a very short period of time that deal happened. And obviously he was one of the best players in the Premier League last year, and almost went to Manchester City in the summer. And he'll go on to bigger and better things after his time in West Ham. But West Ham is a great club to be at, and it's a good stepping stone.
And when you represent a player, it means you're representing everything. So like when brands want to come in and become...
Yeah,
is that part of the deal, or is it just...
Honestly, it depends. For example, I don't particularly work as a player's agent, personally, as in like I'm an agent working with the clubs, connecting the dots and getting paid for doing that.
Okay.
So I don't necessarily work, hands-on. For example, Lucas Paqueta, I'm not his agent, but I was the one who brokered the deal to make the deal happen.
Okay.
So, there's different situations of players that I would work with hands-on more often than not. And also on the commercial side, there's players that I introduce. I'm not a commercial person, but I work with some companies that manage some of the best talents commercially. So I will introduce them to the players and do it like that. That's really how it goes.
Okay, that's good. Well, so now... Let me ask you this before we go into Saudi Arabia, because this is the biggest topic, and I feel you are the closest person in the UAE that can shine some light into this topic with Saudi. But why did Chelsea spend all that money and are doing so poorly? I'm only asking you to just relieve me from this stress that I have, the internal stress, because that's my favorite club. And it's a shame to see what's going on. They bought all these players. They spent an arm and a leg. I think, over $1 billion or something.
That's right.
What happened?
It's very clear to see. They think they have the strategy to invest in top young talent. But unfortunately, with top young talent, you need experience and leadership and, a specific kind of mental toughness that playing in the Premier League, playing for a club like Chelsea needs. And unfortunately, at the moment, Chelsea is a great club, and at the moment, those players are not really equipped with the right tools to do their job. That doesn't mean that they cannot develop. But I think, the mistake that they made in the recruitment is maybe not recruiting enough experienced heads and ready-made players that can come and support the top young talent.
Okay, so now moving on to you, before we go to Saudi, congratulations, Saif. You got your license from FIFA now.
That's right.
So now, does that mean globally you could work with any club?
That's right.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
that just opens the doors for all those other clubs.
That's right.
Wish you all the best, and I know that you're going to kill it. So
thank you.
Tell us about Saudi Arabia. What in the world's going on? I mean, did you foresee this? Did you imagine that all these stars were going to come to Saudi? Do you think more people are coming to Saudi, or what's going on?
Look, firstly, people make mistake of not realizing that Saudi has got a massively rich footballing history as far as the love of football in the country.
Yeah.
And obviously, where they have a big advantage is that they have over 30 million people living in the country.
Yeah.
So, end of the day, it's much more people living in Saudi Arabia than UAE, than Qatar.
True.
And there's a huge appetite for sport and football in Saudi Arabia, which is why historically there's teams like Al Hilal, Al Ittihad, even Al Nasser that have been winning Asian Champions Leagues for years. And if you go to an Al Hilal game, there's 60,000 people there.
Yeah.
I don't think that in the history of UAE, maybe, definitely not in the history of Qatar football, for example, has there been a game where 6,000 fans have gone to a game. In the UAE, you only get big attendances maybe in a big derby where maybe it involves some team like Al Ain and Al Jazeera, and even then it's not the same numbers. In Saudi Arabia, you have 30 million people.
It's true.
So the people love football, and it was only a matter of time with what they were doing and other businesses and other things that football was going to come knocking, because look, Qatar, for example, has a lot of wealth and have spent a lot of money in football. Just like, for example, obviously, Qatar entity owns Paris Saint-Germain. So Qatar had the money to do a lot of things with football in the league in Qatar. But the reality is, if you have no fan base, it's very hard to grow sport in the way that Saudi has a chance to. Same thing with the UAE. There's not a lot of fans regularly that go to most of the games. So what can they do? Any money they spend on it is not, it's like money that's never gonna go anywhere. Whereas in Saudi Arabia, there's a lot of commercialization, there's a lot of fans love it, there's a lot of sponsorship, marketing. And what they've done, they've been very clever. They said, listen, if we bring all the best players in the world to Saudi Arabia, firstly, it means that all their broadcasting deals worldwide, all of a sudden, everyone wants to watch Saudi League.
That's true.
Everyone wants to watch Ronaldo play.
I paid for Shahid. I watched this probably. I watched the Saudi League probably more than the European League now.
Yeah, because now you want to watch Neymar play, you want to watch Ronaldo play, you want to watch Benzema play. Steven Gerrard's coaching there.
Yeah.
So the point is, there's a buzz.
Yeah.
And that's it. And the reality is, with this buzz, is that they do have a plan to invest more money in sport and in football. And if obviously recently, Mohammed bin Salman, Crown Prince, did an interview with I think it was Fox News, and he said that what they've done with football and sport has increased the country's GDP by 1%.
Wow.
And they still want to make it increase by another 1.5%.
That's crazy.
Just from sport.
Just from sport.
So even though it looks like they're spending crazy money,
they're getting that return.
They're getting the return.
Yeah. Just today, by the way, I don't know if you fancy this, but they're now also looking for referees in case you want to become an agent for some. They're saying minimum they'll pay like £400,000.
Of course. That's a big money. Big money. No, for sure. So the point is that they are active and they are ready. Yeah. So
the question is, has anybody contacted you yet? What's going on? I know you can tell us. It's okay.
No, I was very active in the market there over the summer. So I made some great relations with a lot of the people from some of the big clubs there.
Yeah.
But I wasn't able to close any deals yet. But I was involved in. You see, the thing with Saudi Arabia is because it's all new to them in terms of what they're doing with the commercialization of and the globalization of the sport. Still organizationally, they're still getting to grips. They've set up the Saudi Pro League. The Ministry of Sport is obviously behind a lot of the investment.
True.
And then they're trying to organize all the teams. And obviously what they also did recently is the Saudi Arabian Public Investment Fund, who owns Newcastle United Football Club, majority ownership of Newcastle United Football Club, they've taken majority ownership of 4 of the big teams in Saudi Arabia to try and make them more organized and commercial. And I think that will carry on throughout the league. So even though they've had a big summer of business that's been crazy to the public, the truth is, I think they signed 30, 35 players. So it's not a lot of players in terms of global numbers of players.
Yeah.
But obviously, because they're all big profiles, it looks a lot more.
That's true.
But no, the fans are loving it. The atmosphere is great.
Yeah.
I was in Riyadh last week to watch a game. It was really good. The atmospheres are very good. The fans love the sport.
Yeah.
And I think it's here to stay, and it will only grow.
Yeah, I can only imagine your phone calls. I mean, I'm sure players are calling you every day saying, Saif, hook me up, get me in this club, because even LeBron James and all these other basketball players are making jokes saying,
but it's not a joke, because the truth of the matter is Saudi Arabia have more money than the NBA, and if they decided to attack the NBA, the way they've attacked the way they've approached the football world, I guarantee you most of the NBA players would be in Saudi Arabia.
I'm sure.
And by the way, it's a lot more easier to set up a league of basketball than it is to do football, because there's less players. It's much easier, more manageable. So
I agree.
if they actually whenever they want to do that, they will do it.
Okay.
They're doing it now with golf. They've done it with golf.
Okay.
They're doing it with tennis.
All right.
So, it's... but also, they've not been stupid how they've done it, because, like you said, I get a lot of players calling me every day. Saif, get me a move. But what they don't understand is, the reality is, they're going for a certain profile of players and quality and character. And, whether it's a big name player or someone earning a good salary or a professional, quality experienced player. So they're different types of guys they're going for. So, the truth is, they're also being sensible about the way they want to make the moves. But, because it's big money, people talk about it more than other things.
Okay, that's amazing. Well, so now we're going to transition from sports into hospitality. It's something that also people know you very well for. Tell us about some of the establishments that you've created, running, and any new plans.
So obviously my hospitality background, started all the way back in the late 90s in London. So that's how I kind of got my hands in the business of hospitality, and then obviously evolved into football, sports management, and then when I moved to Dubai, I kind of didn't go back to hospitality, but because obviously my main industry and my main business is sports management, working with football players, working with clubs and doing those deals. But I was always interested in hospitality, because when it comes to sport, music and entertainment, everybody wants to be, for example, sports stars want to be musicians. Musicians want to be actors. Actors want to be footballers. So it's all related. And for me, hospitality and food and beverage and nightlife is kind of like the backdrop to these kind of scenarios. So, one of the brands that I brought to the UAE, which is still running and going strong right now, is probably one of the biggest nightlife brands in America, which is a brand called One Oak, one of a kind. So it's, and I was the one who, brought the brand from America through the brand owners, Richie Akiva and his partners from New York, to open it in Dubai. So, we had the location in Dubai.
It's been running for how many years now?
7 years. 7 years, which
nice.
is not bad for Dubai, for a venue to be running this while. And, obviously apart from having the actual nightclub itself, again, because you need to be able to do more than just be a nightclub. We have also a One Oak Terrace, which actually has shisha, food and drink, and different kind of atmosphere. So no, it's been, so One Oak is obviously the main brand that I was responsible for bringing to the UAE.
Yeah.
And currently I'm in the middle of creating a new concept, which I hope and I think hasn't really been done before, which is a premium sports and nightlife entertainment venue, which is basically like a playground for sports-loving enthusiasts to enjoy some high-level sports viewing with some great food and drink, and also be able to enjoy a night out. But the actual venue itself is also going to have a concept barbershop, and also an area in the VIP, which is also going to have a music production and podcasting area, as well as a pool table and a gaming setup, for some esports action.
Yeah.
So, and that's all going to be under one roof. And because the venue is divided up into different rooms, it's going to be called Players House.
Okay.
And that's opening at the Andes Hotel on the Palm Jumeirah.
Nice.
So that's going to be open in a couple of months' time.
Okay.
And yeah, so that's a concept that I came up with from scratch in terms of I think there's a need and a demand even now, for example, with women's sports. The Women's World Cup that was hosted in Australia and New Zealand was a massive success.
Yeah, I watched almost every match.
Yeah,
they were amazing.
Yeah,
I couldn't believe it.
Yeah,
Maybe you should start representing women players now.
Yeah, so that was a big success. And even in the UAE, for me, the UAE is a rich sports-loving cultures, but even in women's sports in the UAE. So I feel like there's a lot of women in sports that compete in basketball teams, tennis, football, all different sports, paddle, that don't really have a place they can go and enjoy nice premium sports viewing and feel comfortable in. So I'm building a venue which is gonna be catering for everybody, but on a premium vibe. Great food, nice offering. Privacy if you want to have a private room to yourself. And entertain VIPs and people like that, and also with the music production. So music artists from around the world. On locally, we'll be able to utilize the room to make music. So it's going to be like a content creative hub. In a nice location that will also be a great F&B offering.
This is great. Look, Saif, I just came back from the US earlier this year, and I lived in the States for about 5.5 years, and everywhere you went, all the restaurants have like TV screens everywhere. Like everyone's addicted. You could watch every single game, whatever game was playing. If it was college football, American football, this is what I mean. If there was like a soccer match, if there was basketball, like everybody is like glued to the screens there because it's a huge industry. And I think, like you said, it's growing here, and people want to find venues. Like it's very difficult to find them here, like proper ones. You could probably find a sports bar here and there, but
they're not. But they're not. The thing is, the problem is this. Firstly, there's no high-end ones. And by the way, that's the problem. Not just in Dubai, it's all over the world. That's why I'm creating this homegrown brand from the UAE, which I hope to, roll out to the rest of the world. But there isn't a venues where the programming of the sport is curated for the customers. So obviously, because my venue has different rooms, the idea is going to be to, obviously every day of the week there's different sports. So normally, for example, on a Sunday you have Formula One. So Formula One will be hosted in one of the areas of the venue. Then you'll have Premier League, then you'll have Saudi League, then you'll have paddle, then you have, NBA, NFL. So my idea is going to be to actually have curated programming on a daily, weekly basis to reach out to all the different people that love sport and who want to watch quality entertainment and want to have a nice night out, but without feeling that they're in let's say, in an overcrowded place, a bit more of a premium VIP vibe. And that's it. And being on the Palm Jumeirah, obviously, it's one of the best locations in Dubai in terms of an area. So, I have good hopes for it. And I hope that it will be a place where people will be happy and enjoy.
Look, Saif, I don't even doubt it a minute. You're one of the most hospitable people I've ever known. Like, just for clarity, for the viewers, Saif, when you go to his house, he always makes sure, he always asks you before that, have you eaten? And then if you haven't, you know there's still food in the house. It's very comfortable. The TV is on, the sports game is on. Like he truly is himself, like the master of hospitality himself. So this business is just perfect for you. If I'm just someone who's actually experienced the hospitality at the OG's home, then you know that's I'm certain that this sports town is going to be amazing and epic. So I don't doubt it at all.
But that's why I wanna replicate that experience.
Yeah.
In Players House, where actually the tagline is going to be home away from home.
Yeah, nice.
So Players House, home away from home, because the point is, it will be a venue where you feel like you're at home.
Yeah.
But you know, and so many people have struggles to enjoy an evening or an afternoon or a morning of sport and entertain and host people in a nice environment. And the fact that we're going to have all these add-on concepts within the venue will just make it a lot more interesting.
That's amazing. So here's the thing, because you talked about the different sports that will be broadcasting. Now, NFL or this or everything else, and even NBA, sometimes those games run really late at night. Is this going to be a 24-hour venue? Is it going to be running till like... that's the question.
No, the question is, we will. You know, the idea is obviously that will be on demand. So you know, obviously, if we're going to be opening at later hours, you know, we'll have to be getting the relevant permissions from Dubai Tourism and things like that. But as we are not, you know, it's not a nightclub and it's not that type of establishment.
Okay.
You know, it's for sports viewing. So. Hopefully, you know, if the demand is there, we're gonna $1,000,000% we're gonna show it, because we want to cater for everybody.
Okay, so sports and hospitality, which one's a tougher industry that you've been experiencing so far?
Sports for sure, because like I said, when you're dealing in a business where there's no loyalty and there's no real consistency, you know, you're really fighting against a lot of other people in the business, in the game, you know, that all want to take food from your table.
Wow.
So it's, you know, it's really eat or be eaten.
You know what's really crazy, Saif, is because at least in football, you've got so many teams, you have so many players, but yet you have this situation. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, you've got clubs out. You've got some top clubs in the Bundesliga, La Liga, the Italian Serie A. You've got all this. So why is it that way? It's crazy.
Because, well, it's not just for football. To be honest, it's in any business where there's a lot of money floating around, and obviously sports, entertainment, there's a lot of money.
Money is the root of all evil.
Money is the root of all evil, unfortunately. And also, it's not just that. It's the fact that a lot of the people in those industries have not been educated in the correct way.
Yeah.
Look, some, you know, each to their own.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying from my personal experience, when you're dealing with people that are not really thinking in the right way when it comes to a deal or a transaction, and also you're dealing with, like I said, a lot of egos, a lot of personalities, there's a lot of human element. And unfortunately, it means that with that human element, it's not just like a deal where it's okay, what's the price, what's this, and people make a decision on that. There's so many other factors that come into a club making a decision on a player, or on a player making a decision on a team. You know, I don't want to go and live in this city, or my wife doesn't like this country, or you know. And look, it's very understand, but because you're dealing with so many variables, it's such a difficult business to navigate and quantify.
Look, you've learned obviously a lot of things about the industry, the good, the bad, and the ugly. But like, what have you learned about yourself through this experience?
I've learned that, you know, to be honest, sometimes I'm a bit of a hothead in my business. You know, you have to be able to control your emotions and your temperament, because obviously when you say or do the wrong thing at the wrong time, bad things can happen. And I've been, you know, not a victim, because I'm not a victim. I've been guilty of, you know, doing those kind of things, you know, in the past. But we're only human. And especially when you're dealing in a human business where it's emotions and relations and dealings. So I would say that, you know, that's controlling your feelings and your emotions and making it a bit more, being more calm,
Yeah.
would definitely help not just myself but everybody in general.
Have you ever lost your cool with one of your talents?
Not just talents, obviously. Like I said, I work a lot with the clubs.
Yeah, yeah.
So of course, I mean, like because people, like people in the football business will do things for different reasons. So of course, sometimes you feel like you want to make, and I'm very person like I believe in closing deals. I like to see myself as a deal maker, not a deal breaker.
Yeah.
So if I feel like a situation where I've been brought in to help in a transaction and things are not going the way they should be going, of course, sometimes you'll react in some not a favorable way.
Okay. And, so let me ask you this. Which were some of like the major milestones or successes that you've had in the football world?
I mean, look.
Or you say, you know what, this was the deal. This was the one that for me was the highlight.
Well, I don't know about highlight, but obviously the first deal that was like the big deal in terms of big transfer fee and a big, not a big player, well, a big player, but is I took a player from FC Basel in Switzerland. His name was Felipe Caicedo, Ecuadorian international player, and moved him to Manchester City. That was in January 2008, and that was the year before Sheikh Mansour in Abu Dhabi bought the club. So the Thaksin Shinawatra, the Thailand
chairman, the owner,
ex-prime minister, he was the owner of Manchester City. So that was my first big deal.
Yeah.
So that was like a deal where, okay, now I've arrived.
Yeah.
So
you knew for yourself, like, you know what, I made it.
Not made it, because none of us have made it.
Yeah.
We're all in a, we're always working and striving to get better in everything we do, whether it's personal and professional and all these kind of things. But no, that was the deal where it was like, like I was recognized for doing a big deal.
Yeah.
And obviously shortly after that, a year after that, I was involved in, with Kolo Toure to go from Arsenal to Manchester, and that was massive.
Yeah.
And obviously because Kolo is a Premier League legend, he's a great man. And then it kind of snowballed. Then I was responsible for bringing Demba Ba to the Premier League.
Yeah.
And obviously he went and had a fantastic career in England, played for West Ham, Newcastle and Chelsea.
Yeah.
One of the saddest players that I brought to the Premier League, and obviously he passed away very sadly recently, was Christian Atsu, who died in the Turkish earthquake.
Yeah.
So I took him from FC Porto to Chelsea.
Yeah.
And that was a great move at the time. So, I've been involved in a few good transactions, but, for me, every deal, whether it's a big player, a small player, big club, small club, I treat it in the same way.
Saif, I'm sure all these players are super grateful to the work that you do, but I want to know, what about their families, like their parents? Have you ever got a card, a call, anything from them that they say, you know what, you changed our life, like thank you for that, because that's huge.
I would love to lie to you and tell you that's happened a lot, but firstly, like I said to you, there is no loyalty.
True.
I don't want to keep repeating it, but it's a sad truth, factual truth of not just sports business. There's unfortunately a lot of people are out for what they can get for themselves. So the truth of the matter is, people will say thank you at the time, maybe.
Yeah.
But everyone gets on with their lives, and I'm not trying to be best friends with a player or a club or a family member. I'm just trying to do my job.
Yeah.
And hopefully, if they recognize that I've done a good job and I've been, I've delivered a good service, that they will recommend me to other people.
Yeah.
And that they will refer me to other people.
The only reason I asked you this is because I recently watched this movie called Rise of Giannis Antetokounmpo from Milwaukee Bucks.
Yeah.
And obviously he's Greek.
Yes.
And if you watch his story in the movie, there's this guy who is a scout and he saw his potential. And when Giannis had an opportunity with another person, he rejected the offer because they were like illegal residents they didn't have passport, they didn't have papers, right? And they rejected the offer from somebody who actually promised them the Greek passport, but and they went with this lower scout, and they took his, and then he was drafted in the NBA, which was like crazy.
Unheard of,
So I mean, I understand your experience, but I'm
that's
like,
very rare.
Yeah, that's very rare. Yeah, I know. This was like
But that's the reality
an anomaly. You know, it was like out of nowhere.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
just hear a story
And
like
look,
that.
I don't know this basketball player, but he looks like a great guy.
Yeah.
And the truth of the matter is, you know, that's a different scenario to say a football player who's already in the system.
Okay.
This guy wasn't in the system.
You're
this
right.
guy was discovered, and look, he's very grateful to the guy who helped discover him.
Yeah.
Which is understandable.
Yeah.
Whereas in the football world, like I said to you, there's a million agents.
Yeah.
There's a lot of family members. There's a lot of people, you know, involved in making these kind of decisions. There's a lot of football clubs. In a football club, there's 20 people that make decisions.
Yeah.
So for me, it's just a case of, you know, trying to do my best to make a transaction happen and seeing how I can, you know, move it forward.
I have one question on the transfer of players. My question is, do you think we're now, with the whole situation happening in Saudi, this might help to elevate the quality of the Saudi national players, and that might give them a chance to go to Europe? Do you think there's a chance for more of that happening?
I would have said yes before. Well, for starters, obviously Saudi Arabia did fantastic at the World Cup in Qatar.
Yeah,
and if
beating Argentina.
And if you compare, for example, Qatar had invested hundreds of millions in a development program from 15 years ago.
Yeah.
That basically yielded zero results.
Yeah.
And they were really bad. And they were the host nation.
Yeah.
But they held an amazing World Cup. So
Exactly.
the Qatar World Cup for me was one of the best World Cups ever.
Yeah.
So they get, you know, but on the field, they weren't very good. Saudi Arabia, on the other hand, obviously had prepared correctly. Hervé Renard, who was the coach, who's also an old friend of mine, did an amazing job. But now the dynamics have shifted because obviously, firstly, they are looking to create one of the best leagues in the world.
Yeah.
So by bringing some of the best talents in the world, naturally now, look, it's very simple. You're a Chelsea fan. So it's like when Gianfranco Zola went to Chelsea.
Yeah.
He was a world superstar.
Yeah.
For Chelsea to have Gianfranco at the time was amazing.
Yeah.
So he was an amazing role model to the young Chelsea players coming up in those times.
Yeah.
So the whole, replicate that idea to what Saudi Arabia is doing. And naturally their players, their national team players are going to develop better, and the young players are going to develop better.
Yeah.
And I think, look, if the quality of the Saudi league is better than the quality of the French league or the better quality than the Dutch league, why would they go to Europe if they can already be playing top-level football in Saudi Arabia?
True. Okay. Saif, look, I know I took you away from the sports lounge where you're probably wearing your PP&E and your hard hat and all of that. You're a very difficult person to catch sometimes, but
No
you're
problem.
always a wonderful person to meet and chat with, and always learn and exploring new ideas. So I wish you all the best with the sports lounge. I wish you all the best with with obviously the you know, being the best agent for some of these top clubs and top players. And you know, any final words for Zeno Talks and for the audience out there?
No, just thank you for having me on, and you know, just to say that, you know, this is interesting times in the world, and it's great to be here. It's great to be, you know, part of what you guys are doing, and I look forward to seeing how the things develop over the next few months.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Thank you.